So here's Farai Gwaze. Farai, tell us who you are. I know that a lot of people know you, but there are others who do not. Who are you?
Well, I'm a broadcast journalist, in essence, on the state broadcaster. That's my profession in general. But yeah, I've thoroughly been enjoying the work that you're doing, Google.
I'm trying.
Yeah, we do go way back from our broadcasting years. And yeah, the subject came up and I looked at it and I thought, well, this would be an interesting subject to talk about. I'm not a 30-plus-year-old virgin. So, and yes, I heard the introduction that I'm being acknowledged for a Zimbabwean man's perspective. I am a Zimbabwean man, so I'm giving a Zimbabwean man's perspective, as opposed to all Zimbabwean men's perspective. So yeah, well, firstly, kudos to you for putting yourself out there and being able to open up this discussion. I think it's going to be very interesting, especially in light of some of the men that, I think there was one guy, right? Was it one guy who sent in his letter?
One guy sent in his letter. Well, I asked one guy. I didn't ask everyone else. Yeah.
So yeah, that one guy who sent it. So you shared that with me, and I went through it. So my take on this issue. I fully understand how.
But we're supposed to read the story, right?
Oh yeah.
Because others may not know.
Yeah. So
it's a bit long, but we'll try and speed it up.
I'm gonna try and do my best.
We'll probably put it on the screen as well, but it's so long. Yeah, I don't know who's gonna read it.
It is. Okay, here's what I will do though. I will acknowledge some aspects of his. I'm just going to share the thing on the screen. So lovely.
Okay.
And then I'll acknowledge some aspects of this, and then also give us a bit of an appreciation. This guy is in his 30s. Is a man of faith, a man of God, ties his values and principles to his faith, and basically because he hasn't found the right person, has not been able to copulate, because that's what comes with being with the right person. All right, cool. Now, when you first brought that up to me, my first position, we'll get into more later on, was that that's weird as a guy. Like
the first thing you said was he's not serious.
Yeah, actually yes. Like,
he's not serious. Yeah. Like, how can you be a guy in your 30s and still be a virgin and say, it's beyond your
100%.
There's nothing you could do about it. You don't want to be. He's like, no, you're not trying. You're not trying. Yeah. That was your first response to it. Then what changed it?
No, it still hasn't changed.
It still hasn't changed.
But what it has done is it's made me appreciate why he hasn't been serious. Because I think that's more the important thing. And his story, in essence, kind of brought up a lot of trauma as a child.
Yeah, he said that he grew up in a family where his parents were very abusive, verbally and physically. Yeah. And he was even suicidal during his primary school years. Yeah. But what stopped him from, the depression and the fear from escalating was the knowledge that he got about God and hell, and how if somebody commits suicide, they go to hell. So I don't know how far that true is, but I know that a lot of Christians believe that. Right. So that's the reason why he decided, I'm not going to commit suicide.
And we're glad that he didn't.
We're very happy that he is here today. Yes.
But he also did share how his faith contributed a lot towards him not engaging relationships and also being able to make sense of himself through his beliefs. Now that's what struck me as very interesting, because he said that when he had expected that by the time he turned 27, he would be married.
Yes.
And, so I thought to myself, well, this is why I said he's not serious. Is that like, you see, for a man of faith, to still be a virgin at your age means that you have not taken seriously getting married. You see now. Now, that's where my worry is that, okay, well, hold on a second. Are there growth challenges that he's experiencing? Because you see, there's no person that one can say based on a certain income bracket can get married. Because let's just be honest, you could be in the communal night, the royals, at 18 years old, them boots, and a couple of chickens, right? You can go, right, this is what I've got, let me go this, and you can get married, right?
It's true. But you see, that's the thing that people seem to ignore. Everyone has the life that they imagine.
Yeah.
Everyone has things that they want to achieve, a way that they want to achieve marriage, not just anyhow. Like you said, you can find somebody easily who may be willing to marry you, even if you don't even love the person. My point. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. My point, I think, is that maybe he wants to get married when he has a certain kind of money. One thing that he said is that he hasn't found a stable job. He hasn't found a stable job. So if you know, Kuti, this is the kind of life that I want to have. I want to give my wife, my family this kind of life. And I'll not you. Why? You know what I mean? You're going to probably wait until you get that right financial situation that you want to do it. So I don't think his thing was like, I'm so helpless. I don't know why this is happening to me. I don't think he was really coming out of, there's nothing I can do about it. It was more of, my situation is sad. Why is this funny? What are you laughing?
Sad, yeah.
No, yeah, because obviously you get the tone that he's not happy about his situation. Like, as for me, you guys are like, I even said, Kuti, look, you get to times when you're like, hey, you know what? I've been waiting, bruh. But for me, it's really more of a choice. You know what I mean? Like, it was a choice of until I meet this person.
Right.
So I'm saying that maybe with him, it's one of those things where he financially hasn't gotten to where he wants.
Right.
And maybe he's still dealing with a lot of family trauma that he went through. Because why else would he mention, how abusive and how difficult he's growing?
Those are excuses.
Excuses.
Listen, my brother.
You could look at them.
Firstly, my brother, let me say this here. Much respect to you for actually for sharing that with us. I mean, I'm being hard on you, because I'm speaking to you, because I'm sure you're watching this. I'm being hard on you only because there's certain truths that when I spoke to Google, I said, you know what, I'd like to also be able to share. And why I call them excuses is because when you get to a certain age, they call it 35, and they say that's when being a youth ends, right? Now, what that means is you've gotten to the point where you can't make excuses about anything that happened to you previously to make sense of who you are going forward. So, for example, if you grew up in a situation where there was no mom and dad, you can't be 35 going forward and say, listen, well, I'm not because I didn't have mom and dad. You should realize that, listen, these are the circumstances that I experienced before, but going forward, it's up to me now, because you're now an adult, to decide how you're going to go forward. So, trauma, understood, acknowledged, but you're 37 years old. And at that point, we understand that you should be able to at least take ownership of the life that you now have and where you want to go with it. Because what kind of a woman is going to come into your life if you're still making issues about how you grew up and what your experiences were? Because you haven't taken accountability for that to yourself. And that's where I say there's an element of him not being serious. But
no, I do agree with you, Kuti. At the end of the day, you're alive today, and you're alive. You are able-bodied. As far as I know, he doesn't have any. He's able-bodied. He's alive. So
you said he worked some jobs here and there, right? Nothing consistent.
Yeah,
right?
nothing.
So
nothing consistent. And then he's still very committed to the church, and
There we go. Yes. Exactly. Yes. Go on.
So my thing was that he's not the first. as I told you guys, there are several virgins in their 30s that. Can you stop it?
I had no idea there's several virgins.
Several.
I didn't know.
Several. Most of them are women, female.
That makes sense.
But
Wow.
I at least someone actually texted me about a 45-year-old professor virgin in this country.
Woman.
A man. A 45-year-old male professor. And then
Do you know a professor in what?
Huh?
Do you know a professor in what?
I don't know. It's Why would I know?
Because it's for some. Hey, God.
Okay. And then someone else in their 30s, a guy in their 30s was a virgin that I know personally.
Right.
But again, one of those things where people don't want to share. But the one that I wanted to talk about, because we're talking about the church thing, I know a 38-year-old virgin female who was in church. She's a Christian. She was very active in church for a very long time, since childhood. Same kind of situation where home was very abusive, and I think it was sort of like that escape, you know. I think that a lot of people who are facing difficulties at home tend to find that refuge and that, you know, sort of help. You know, I don't think they get the right kind of help in some cases, or they know what they're looking for exactly.
You know what I find interesting about what you're saying? These are the same people who find refuge under a living God.
Yeah.
Like that's the shocking part. Is that
I think, you know, there's a level of ignorance that we come into it, because I'm one of those people who.
You're one of those people.
No, I have to admit, I have to be honest.
Tell us. You're one of those people that one. Yeah.
I'm one of those people who had this sort of unrealistic idea of what it is to be a church.
Oh, got you.
A Christian churchgoer.
I understand.
For me, if you were a Christian and you're going to church, there was this unrealistic, perfect world that you were living in. And it's only when you go through things in the church that don't make sense that you now realize, but wait a minute. I have a brain. I have a heart that matters to God. I personally would never do this to someone. Why is somebody doing it to me? And justifying it because of their position or their title, you know,
Church politics, right?
Or their Christianity. Not even politics.
Right.
Just basic, you know, let me give you an example that I made, you know. If church is so, and look, I'm not telling people not to go to church. Please do what you need to do, right?
So what are you telling them, love?
What I'm trying to say is that sometimes you put so much dependence on church, not realizing that it is not perfect either. There is no perfection in just going to church and being serving in a church. You are fully committed, and
you see
that's enough. It's not enough.
What you're touching
You still
on,
have to get your life, which is what you're saying.
Yes.
Get your life.
Thank you.
Don't be like, oh, you know, because I'm in church and hey, then, you know, everything is fine. There's a reason why you still feel unfulfilled.
Yep.
There's a reason why your life still isn't going the way you want it to go. Could it be that you are expecting too much from the fact that you are just a member of this church and not giving yourself enough responsibility to go and do what you need to do and get what you need to get? And also stop idolizing this. Do you know what I mean? Why are you idolizing the church so much?
I thought we were here to get the Zimbabwean man's perspective.
No. We are
I'm appreciating the insight.
Yeah, because we were talking about the church thing.
Yes.
Which I had 10 years ago. Me, I'm just saying,
Right,
no,
yeah.
there's a point in and I think obviously it hits home because, like I said, I was there. I'm a Christian at the moment. I don't.
Let's
go to
differentiate
church.
something very quickly. There's a difference between a man and a woman when it comes to this particular issue. Like I also shared with you on your first video when you put that out. I remember when I called you and I said to you, Cooks, I was like, you know, there is one thing that at least I can understand from you, which is you tied yourself, if I can be honest, like a covenant. Like I made a covenant with myself also. Like I used to have dreadlocks, right?
Yeah.
And then I made a covenant with God and said, listen, when I do have my daughter, right, and I knew this like way back, then I'm gonna cut off my dreadlocks. So you make that in a belief and understanding to what your dynamic is with God. Now I get that for you. You've said listen, I am going to keep this for you in relation to a reward that you are going to make available to me. For a guy, it's very different now. Because as a man, you're supposed to go out and look for her, right? You're supposed to be able to prepare yourself so that you can be adequately ready to have her. He has shown me in his lack of seriousness that he'd rather confide within the church as opposed to go out there and work to make it happen. Has he failed? Well, I'd love to hear more from him. Within the church himself, has he considered how the church could be able to contribute towards him understanding and finding the right person? Did he bring that dynamic in? And also be able to push him to have what's required to make that happen? None of that seems to be coming out. That's what I'm picking up here. I'm just saying it like it is.
I do. I agree what you're saying, but
Yeah, what's the but?
No, not even but at what you're saying. I'm trying to get back to that point of when I was saying, Kuti, don't put too much dependence on the church. I was also trying to
don't hide behind the church.
Don't hide behind the church, but also exposing, Kuti. There are many things that churches could do to help people that they don't do.
Okay.
They don't do.
But they always push
like
one though.
Huh?
The marriage one. Like, listen, tell me a church where they'll that is what, like, listen, there's someone for you.
You know
there's
what?
Someone for you.
You know.
There's marriage for you.
You know what? There's so much in my mind right now. It's like I want to say 10 things at the same time. I wish I had 10 tongues.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about the church thing, there's just so much to discuss.
Right.
But I think that sometimes you don't get the help that you could get, and maybe you don't speak up, maybe you're not speaking up, maybe he doesn't speak up and he doesn't have, because I mean, after being so committed to church, like you said, anyone who you should be able to speak to and be like, I'm struggling, like pastors, I'm struggling, I really want to, how many times have you, like personally for me, I've had certain times when I've gone out with aunts or whatever, and it's a wedding or whatever, and then someone's Bali's trying to get me for his son. Sakai, what's your name?
And that's not wrong.
My son is single.
Yes.
Or someone's mother, my son is single.
Yes.
Are you single too?
Yes.
So you could be in those situations where churches could actually help you to find, if you are going to be that committed, Jagutika, my whole life and everything I do, ask yourself, is there enough that you are getting from all of this commitment? Because I believe that we should, go to church. I believe that you should go to the right church. Until you find that right church, you cannot go to church because there's no point in going to somewhere where you're not getting the help that you need. So,
okay.
Yeah. And another example is like, let's say this guy was struggling with, and he spoke of